So, my name's Stef, Cybichowski. I come from the UK. I've been around the principles probably for about 4 or 5 years now. And for the last year, I've spent time working with businesses, with charities, with military veterans, with aid workers. Seems that I have a huge, diverse range of projects I've been working on, and it's been very exciting. And I've learned so much about how the principles work, just in the way that life has unfolded over the last year or so. It's been such an interesting experience. So hopefully we'll be able to chat a little bit about that. I'd love to hear about Dave's story too.
Would you? Okay. I'm Dave, which I think most of you know now. The majority of my work at the moment is either in schools or in businesses, and involves coaching, some teaching. Yeah, that's about it really. And then a new project which is working with other coaches to effectively form an elite group of of like ninja inside-out coaches. Because in the UK there's like a massive market of people who are purchasing coaching and stuff already. And I guess that's obviously Europe-wide, worldwide, but most of my work is in the UK currently. So, and people are getting in, you know, coaching and paying big money and stuff and whatever, but they're not being pointed to what we're talking about. And so just at that base level of premise, when you're in a conversation with somebody, that's really, really useful to know. Because it's not that they won't be getting, you know, good results or whatever. I'm not arrogant enough to assume that that would be the case. But you always know that they're going to be working from a premise that isn't quite how the system works. And you know a little bit or a lot or whatever about how the system works. That's a great talking point with people, I found. That's really, really good. Because like for all of us, we're all sort of, how would you describe it, waking up or seeing things or whatever language works. And that's going on for everybody, because of course we are everybody. Yeah. So whatever's going on for us is going on within consciousness. So it's not like any of us are isolated or anything like that. Like the fact that we're here, the fact that we're seeing this is going on in coffee bars, in boardrooms, in classrooms, all over the world. And that, when I started to see that, that was like a major advantage, because it didn't mean I had to create something artificial to talk to people about. I could just talk to them about what was going on for them. So even though this is called business, we were just talking about this, weren't we? Like, it's just humans, we're all humans together sitting in a circle, and one's getting close, which is great. And, you know, sharing human experience and understanding of what's going on. And sharing the principles in those organizations is just gold. It's amazing. And like one of the biggest reasons I see is that, first of all, people get to experience who they really are versus all the descriptions and constructs of who they are. And humans love that. Like, we're all humans and we love it, right? Or we wouldn't be here. So guess what? They love it too. And they'll find ways of including you in their organization if that's what you want to do. Secondly, you get to help people see that they are pouring so much energy into trying to create something that's already present. So, is this okay? Can I tell a really quick story? Yeah. So I was working with a group of 12 head teachers, and the remit was not really to teach the principles. The remit was to help them coach to get better results in the organization. And even words like that, people can go, well, does that mean grades? Does it mean this? It was a broad terminology. They have a coaching culture, and they wanted to really develop that coaching culture. So that was the remit. But I went in with some of my team, and it's impossible, really, nowadays to do anything other than start from the point of like the ground, of like who we really are, and talk about that for a while. So we talked about that for a while, quite a while actually, 3 days in the end. Although they thought it was going to be lots of different things. And I gave them exercises and stuff to do around coaching so that they could feel like they were getting what it said on the ticket. And all the time they think their coach is improving, and all the time they're just seeing more and more clearly how life works versus how we think it works. That's what's going on. And then around halfway through the second day, yeah, that happened for a lady. She just had this huge out-breath, and she got very watery-eyed and stuff. And she said, "Oh my God, if we listened to children the way we're listening to each other now, our schools would change in an instant." And then, because it bounces, you know, when the reactions start, it bounces around the room. And somebody else went, "Oh my goodness, look at how much energy and effort and stress we're creating to try and replicate what's already here." And it's like, boom, now we're starting. Now we're moving. It's already here. Everything we're looking for in the outside is already present on the inside. And so to spend days, hours with people doing that work is cool. Very, very cool. Your go.
So when we looked at the title, if there isn't a title, it's just business, and I had a thought about, so are there going to be some people that are coming to listen, coming to explore, wanting an idea of how to talk about principles in business? Or are people looking for a way to see something new about how to create a business? Sharing the principles. So I'd just like a quick kind of hand count, just to make sure we cover whatever people are looking for in this. So for the people who would like to hear a little bit more about sharing the principles in business, just raise your hand. Okay. And for people who are thinking about or already have a business, principles that want to hear all about that. Oh, okay. I know nothing more.
However, it was quite a lot of fun with the whole hand raising. And do you notice they're getting more laughs than we are?
Oh, we got more
so
exercise.
We need to work on
got
that.
more exercise.
Yeah.
So
they got claps. Can you clap?
Bless you. Where did you go now? I have no idea.
Draw some shit on the thing. I've done that in trainings. When I'm stuck, I get up and get a pen and go, It's true. It's honestly true.
So, I think it's fair to say, it's an assumption I'm making, but it's fair to say that Dave's business and the way that he arrived at it and his background is pretty much very different to mine. And what I find sometimes is that people, when they hear that I work in business, because I have a lot, I mentor a lot of students. Here I work in business, and they say, "So how do we work in businesses? How do we create a business? How should it look?" And it's always a how-to question. And what's interesting for me is that I think, from Dave's experience of how he shows up, how he serves is different to mine, and it is it's so different. There just is no template for it whatsoever. But there are some things I think that are common. And the way I came to this originally was I desperately wanted to be a coach. I went to, I did some training in the principles, and then I went to Supercoach Academy in order to be a coach. And when I came to Supercoach Academy, I had a very specific idea in my head about how it would look, who my niche clients would be, how much I needed to earn, how many clients I would need a week, and all I needed to know was, okay, what do I talk about? So I came to it from that thing about, and I look back now and it's a little bit embarrassing, but I really did think I want a coaching business. I'll use the principles, and somehow along the way I'll probably help a few people, and I'll probably fix myself as well. And I was, I guess, probably about 3 months into the program, and the more that I began to see about the principles, the more I began to see about the natural connection that we have with people and how our thinking interferes with connection with people, I began to see how much I got it wrong. I began to see how I wanted a coaching business because I wanted connection, but the way I was showing up with people was like a second-hand car salesman. At the end of the process, I wanted a result. I wanted to get a client. I wanted to sell a car. So something shifted along the way, and when I began to see how I was showing up, there's something about an energy with second-hand car salesmen that you just don't like. You're in the space with them, and you know that they're trying to push you in a certain direction, and they have a lot of thinking about that. There's an awful lot of stuff going on in their head in how they're going to get it, and I recognised that in me, and I was so disgusted that I decided to stop the idea of wanting a business. I mean, I already had a design business. I decided to stop wanting to be a coach. I wanted to learn more about the principles, but I decided to stop. And as a part of that, in my design business, I began to show up differently. I began to talk about, not necessarily the principles, but I talked about why people were getting up in, my employees were getting up in their heads about various things, and how they could speak to people better. And something shifted in me in as much as I began to have a conversation with people without needing them to understand something. I began to have a conversation with people, with not just my employees, but with waiters in restaurants, as well as people who were looking to be coached, and I wasn't coaching them. But because I wasn't coaching, I was free to just have a conversation. So this thing that shifted for me was, it went from me needing to have a business, needing to have a coaching business for me, to being totally liberated to just talking to people. And something happened when I recognised that, is that the space changed. That connection that I'd always craved and never had because I had so much stuff going on in my head, seemed to just naturally appear. And people would offer me they would get really comfortable, and they would offer me little threads of things. So, you know, I have a business, and you know, and it's going really, really well, but this is a problem, and this is a problem, and if I could just get that sorted out. So I was getting all these threads offered to me without me asking, and what was, I didn't have to work it out for them. It was like I just got really curious, naturally curious about how their world looked, how they were arriving at those conclusions, and why they thought it was a problem. I didn't have to sort it out. I was just really interested. When I had all the pressure of not needing to have a business, I just got really interested in people. I just got really interested in serving people as opposed to serving me. And that shift, when I decided I wasn't going to be a coach, I wasn't going to have a business, that shift began manifesting in conversations that I had with people that I could not have imagined the outcome for. When I didn't have an outcome, one of the first conversations I had when I was with the Supercoach Academy, a friend of mine who I met there was a trainer in a huge company in China, a huge hotel casino, and he said, "Why don't you come over for 4 weeks and we'll do some coaching and it'll be really good fun." Just as a product of a conversation that I had, which I had no intention of trying to sell him on my services. The conversation just unfolded in a way that was so perfect. All the threads just fell into place, and so I worked there, and I've worked there for the last 3 years now. I'm going back again next week, and for me, the way my experience has been is that I am guessing. I've seen, you know, Dave and I've discussed, and I know for him that curiousness, that connection to people, that interest in them without any need for an outcome is, for me, one of the main things that I've learned about how this works in business. I don't do any marketing. I don't have a website. I don't have a Facebook page. I barely have business cards. And I'm not saying that that's the way to do it. All I have, the way at the moment it's been showing up for me for a year, is just having those conversations, which George Pransky calls sacred conversations. Every conversation I have, whoever it's with, whether it's with the waitress or, you know, whether it's with a business leader, to me is, for me, at this moment in time, and it may change, seems to be the way that I become visible to the world, and it becomes my playground. It becomes, conversations are fun because I haven't got it right. So this year I've spent 6 months of the year out of the UK. Sorry?
We missed you.
Thank you. And all that has been sharing principles, and all that has been as a result of a sacred conversation.
So, can I add something?
You may.
Tom, I'd love to hear from you guys. What's really interesting is hearing Stef say he's got no business cards. I think what he means is he hasn't got those little bits of cardboard that we have with names written on, the ones that you get at networking, whatever, and then chuck it in a drawer and never look at it. But I hear really clearly he's describing his business cards. So there's one of them sitting over there, a camera, and that will go on the internet and remain in time. There's each one of you that he's touching and sharing. This is sacred conversations with everybody. Those are business cards. And so the interesting thing about hearing anybody's story is, I once said to somebody, there's a pretend frustration I have that like coaching or the principles ever crossed over with the world of how-to. Because you could take everything that Stef said and turn it into a how-to for you. But what Stef's describing is the unfolding of Stef. Yeah. And the difference in there, if you can see that, will save you years of cocking things up, like the rest of us have. Yeah. So he's describing the unfolding of Stef, moment by moment, conversation by conversation, client by client. But you could listen to what Stef's saying and go, oh, okay, so I need to have no outcomes, nothing on it, get really curious about people, no business cards, and turn that into your how-to, and end up with nothing, because it just isn't how you're unfolding. He's just describing life-lifing. He's describing Steffing in the world. That's what he's describing. He isn't giving you a methodology. And that's the real challenge for people is when they come to me and they go, how would I do that? And I'm like, I've got no idea yet. How would I get a client next Christmas? I don't know. I've got no idea, because it's November the 20 something. And we're here in a room. Right? And so that's what's interesting with your clients, is what's present now. So I mean, sometimes I'll go into things and people have hired me to talk about resilience or something like that. And I sit down and say, look, just before we talk about resilience, what's going on for you right now? Oh, nightmare, I was in this meeting, and they're gone, and that's the threads, that's all of that. They're just humans. That's what it is. So what, oh sorry.
I was going to say, I was just going to say that we all do it differently, because we all respond to our own wisdom. We all do what occurs to us, and there is no single way, which sounds like a cliche, but it's absolutely true. And why I'm saying is, it might be different for me next week. It might occur to me to get a website. I spent 20 years as a website designer.
You might not want to tell that story if you're selling a website.
You've got a laugh.
Yeah, could it be bigger though? That was better.
Yeah.
So can we ask what questions are here?
Yeah,
is that all right?
let's-
Does anybody have like a question? Cool.
I mean, it's not a question, it's not something that came to me. It started when you were speaking about working in schools. And it occurred to me, because we were speaking at breakfast, that because I've home educated my 4 children for the last 17 years. I was hoping for a cheer then. And it occurred to me that actually my experience is something that would be great to share in schools, because I see, learning from a child's point of view rather than an institution's. And then I thought, is that what I want to do? Well, right now, no, it's not what I want to do. And then I thought, but that's what it's like for us. It's all out there. Everything is a possibility. We're in the sweet shop. We can work in any area that we want to. It's all available. What do we want at that moment?
Cool, thank you. Anybody have any questions? I mean, comments and stuff is cool. Love questions too.
Anything really.
How would I move from my presently crappy job to what I would love to do, right, and let that unfolding begin. The job relates to the flat, which relates to the debts. There's a cycle, and I need to have courage to break that.
Yeah, wonderful.
Would you repeat his question?
Yeah, so the question I heard, so let's check I've heard the right question, was how do I break the cycle, and how do I get out of a job I don't like to doing work that I love, and how do I allow the unfolding? So if this was like a coaching session and you were my client, I'd probably start to talk to you about the fact that you are already doing that. So by virtue of being here, by virtue of having that vision or that aspiration or that desire or whatever, so often we're asking questions about a mythical hallucinatory future, and we're missing the power of what's present, like right now, because that's the only thing that's here. Like what's now. So what's right now is you're in an environment, I guess, that you're enjoying, you're learning, you're mixing, you're sharing, and things will come to you. So it's not how do I start the unfolding, it's like, oh, I'm unfolding. In the session I did yesterday, Mandy's not here, she'd asked a question about something to do with paying clients or whatever. She'd forgotten that she already had people and was already doing it, because she was so caught in the thought of how would I in something get a future point. That looked so real for her. All of her reference points were about that hallucination, that if I could draw, which I can't. You could draw it, seriously. You could draw like a bubble of the future scenario, and she was talking about that future scenario like it was now. And then suddenly, like, the bubble burst, and she went, oh, no, hang on. No, I have got paying clients and stuff. What am I talking about? Oh, sorry. My bad, and just burst out of it. And so that, somebody was saying this morning, weren't they, about seeing, or realizing, or recognizing, or whichever word works for you. But if you can see that you're already doing that, then you can drop out of postponing feeling great based on some condition at some point in the future, and you can feel great right now with the unfolding that's here right now. Because there's no separation between the two. This could just sound like mumbo jumbo, I don't know, but it's what's coming out my gob, so there we are. Yeah, there's nothing that says you can't feel amazing with the unfolding that's occurring for you right here, right now, because it's amazing. But our habit is it'll be amazing when, and we create a gap, which I call like the suffering gap. Oh, if only I had we've got, I don't know, like 20 people. Stef, if only we would have had 45 and more laughs, you and I would have felt better. Seriously. And that's how life looks, isn't it? Yeah. It's like, oh man, if only, why wasn't I at the front there? Talk to Sue about that. If only that would have happened. If only. And if only is a familiar story of the me, of the little I, of the little self, that which denies the moment. You're not having this moment. It should be a better moment than this. Right? And the more and more you see that and realize that, the more and more you'll see that you are the unfolding you're longing for. You're everything you ever dreamed of and more in this time, now. So like that which you're postponing and delaying is here, you're in. Like how cool is that? There's no need to put off and hanker for some mysterious future. It's now. Imagine the freedom possible to see that now. Because that's all there actually is. The rest is just kind of jive and made up. So I could make up some shit for you if you like, but I'd rather talk about here and now. Because that's where we both are.
And that's what happened to me. I'd had this design business for 20 years. In my head, it had become toxic. In my head, I believed that I shouldn't be doing that, I should be doing something else because I wasn't very happy at work. And exactly as Dave says, there was a point along the way when I began to understand that it wasn't the job. That it was my thinking about the job. And once I got the this is the interesting thing. Once I began to see how much suffering I was creating for myself. It took a little while, but eventually it dissolved. And I began to enjoy my work more. I began to enjoy the people more. I began to talk about the principles with the people I worked for. It became really comfortable. Then, what happened was, all sorts of possibilities unfolded. I had more clarity to be able to see what was on the table, and what I'd wished for before I let go of it began to manifest, began to come. You know, I was asked to do various things that I've always wanted to do, but I have a sense that while I was in that place of I need to be there rather than here, and the space in between here and there is causing me suffering, I would never have had the clarity to see the possibilities or have the conversations that I had. I was okay where I was. I'd let go of that suffering. Does that make sense?
To me? Yeah.
Cool.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I like it.
He was in Transylvania.
Yeah. Transylvania. Catch it.
Dave, when you were talking earlier, it sort of occurred to me again that we're starting the question with the wrong words anyway.
Yeah.
And when you just ask for questions, there was 2 or 3 how-to questions that came to my mind, and then I thought, oh, that's the how-to thing again. Like the how-to is already leading us in the wrong direction.
Perfect. Yeah.
And it's like, it's so tempting, isn't it, to ask them, how do I do this? How do I share? How do I find business? How? But then, you really just hear now, something occurs to you, what you do.
There you go. Yeah.
And so I think with the business side of things, I sort of,
There you go.
I think it's such a frightening subject because the outcome is really important, or it seems that way, right? Because if you don't quite know how to sort of pay your bills this month or something like that, then it looks like it's really important that you get a client. And that doesn't help. That doesn't help at all. Somebody said the other day that's like the ultimate repellent of, finding business really.
Yeah, I wouldn't adopt that as a belief either. That ain't that helpful, right? Because sometimes you just need stuff, But I love what you said there. What's really interesting was in yesterday's session, there were some questions just like that, and I just wouldn't answer them. And that's like fireworks. Yeah, people bounce, but there's very good, caring, kind rationale why you won't. Sometimes, not always. Today looks like answering them. Yesterday didn't look like answering at all. Now, when you're working with groups over an extended period of time, like a 2 or a 3 day immersion, you will get people bouncing like fireworks. And so having that knowing that you are the unfolding is really very useful in that situation. Having that knowing that whatever is required is delivered in the real time to you, as and when it's required, is very, very useful. But the practice or behavior is not that. The behavior is, oh my goodness, what structure am I going to talk to them about, or whatever. And then somebody comes along and they sell you a structure, and they tell you that that's the solution that you can go and sell to clients. And you relax, and you go, oh, thank heavens, now I've got something I can sell. So you mistakenly think that the relaxation has come from somebody else's structure. Yeah? So you go out and sell it, and because you're relaxed, you have a nice fluid conversation, connection, whatever, and you sign the deal. The next conversation you go to, you try the same again. This time not so much. Yeah? Because you're missing the unfolding of the moment in favor of so I sometimes say to people, it's like wanting last week's vegetables on your plate every day. missing the fact that Ocado could drop fresh vegetables to you any second. Like, so which world do you want? Do you want to try and memorize last week's stale structure? Or do you want the structure of now that comes through collaboration between you and the client, live in the room, full of the energy and vitality of life, to document and have them sign and pay you a fee? Because I really see it like that, like it's a choice. I can have or you know what it's like when you create with someone? Or like when you're playing with a kid or something, and it's like, it's dynamic, it's fun. That's what I'm looking for with a client, and I capture it, I write it down. I have them tell me what it would look like. Oh no, not like that. Scribble, scribble. Like this, like this, like this, like this, this. Yeah, no, that would be amazing. That would really work for our organization. Brilliant. And so we create it together. Like you would create any relationship together. But the beauty of the principles of the understanding is it takes you back so cleanly to who you really are through any of the myriad of myths that we can create of who we think we are in any given moment. And that gives you freedom to construct. Sometimes it's useful to say, hey look, I worked with, you know, XYZ Limited last year, and what we did was we did some preparatory calls. Then we spent 3 days together and we went really deep on coaching and how that would free up their culture. They're like useful anecdotal stories. But the magic is always what comes in the moment, in the now. Because that's the only thing that's actually real. The rest of it, it's debatable how real that is actually. But anyway, for the sake of now, let's stick with that. Yeah? Does that make sense?
Totally, because it sort of explains the things that have worked really easily and well and naturally, and it feels good and it feels right, and things have come from that already. You know, so it's a total, that's total logic.
Yeah, yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Total logic. I love that description. Perfect.
I love the what you just described is what I see it as is whatever the moment asks for. Wherever we are, whoever we're talking to, whatever the moment asks for, rather than looking for what we've already done, what somebody else has already done, what's already worked, what hasn't worked. It's being open to whatever the moment asks for. That's freedom. That's liberation.
Yeah. And that's what's on offer here. Yeah, that's what's on offer. Liberation and freedom. Right.
Thank you, Dave. That was really helpful for me. Yeah, that you said that yesterday. There were people wanting to have the how-to questions, and you didn't want to listen to them. All my life, I think I've been, or we have been so used to go to ask other people for help whenever we needed help in our businesses, because they probably would know what our next step would be or how to do that. But this is just totally opposite. It needs to come from the inside and not from the outside. So this is a new paradigm, it's a new way of thinking.
That's it. Yeah, you've got a brand new product to sell to people. They've never heard of this, seriously.
But this is difficult to people, could be or might be, because we have to think, it's like going the opposite way, we can't think the way we used to. We have to go, it's like going backwards, but it's not.
Yeah, I love that. You see, what the people who were bouncing yesterday couldn't see is from here. I was watching 3 or 4 people going, oh yeah, ah. Now, when you're the person, and I've been the person who bounces. It's not an immune thing, right? I've been the one here going, oh, why aren't you answering my phone? I've done all that, of course. But when you're in that state, right, you can't see what's going on around you. So you can't see the 3 or 4 people who are going, oh yeah. And so they're the people I look to connect with in that moment, to give the other people space to come down a bit, and just calm down or whatever. Because that's just like a temporary blip, because it's all a temporary blip. That makes sense.
It also comes down to control. I always was a control freak until I saw last year on Jack's seminar, that I never actually had control of anything. I just saw this hand of God holding me gentle, you know, always had been since I was born, and always will until I die. And everyone else, you know, lying on this hand of God. You don't see it. And all I had was to lean back and just enjoy the ride and know that I was supported always and will always be. But I thought I had, you know, the control of my life, thinking what needs to be done now. Now I need to do, you know, I have to do nothing. That's really amazing.
There's a really interesting, like mostly I work with organizational leaders, so they'll ask me something about, you know, how should I lead? And it's like, I don't know, it'd be really arrogant of me to try and project my version of leadership onto you. Why would I want to do that? You know, you can, I think I Googled it for one talk I did, there were like 60-something thousand books on leadership strategies and this and that and formats and ways you should think, and I'm like, well, if any of that shit really worked, you'd all be brilliant. So why would I be here? So let's throw that out, which speaks to what you're saying. Let's throw that out the window straight away. I don't completely throw it out the window, but metaphorically, yeah, because that would just break windows. So you know, but for me to impose my view of leadership on, but for me to sit with another human and have them have the experience of unfolding moment by moment the leader they are from within, oh, that's gold. That's wonderful. They seem to like that.
I think that one of the first lessons I had in control was when I was doing some one-to-one coaching when I really didn't know what I was talking about, and then at the end of the time that I've been doing one-to-one coaching, I was going to attend a workshop that somebody else was going to do to the team, the people that I was talking to, and then the guy who was doing the workshop said, "I can't do it. You've got to do it." And I freaked out quite a lot, and I phoned a few people up and said, "I know I'm supposed to show up and respond to what shows up, but really?" Really? So I had some advice, you know, people said, because this was a principals workshop, so I had in my head that I was going to be the person at the front, and I would have a flip chart, I would have an audio, and in my head I thought, okay, I'm going to put a couple of topics up, and then I'm going to trust Divine Mind to give me what I needed in the moment. But in my mind it was me teaching people. In my mind I had an idea of how it should look, and there was a lot of ego. And then what happened was I got in front of the room, and these people are all trainers. They're all like professional trainers. So a little bit of thinking about that. So I began, and I talked, and I looked up in the air quite a lot, and it dried up terribly. It just wasn't coming, and it got really a little bit embarrassing. It got so embarrassing that people started to help me. I know what you mean by that. When such and such said, "Yeah, I understand that," and then they started having a conversation. "Yeah, I remember when we had our one-to-one talk with Stef. You know, he said this, and that made sense to me." And what turned out, it was the most beautiful 4 hours of a workshop that looked nothing like how I had imagined it should look like. That was the unfolding. I mean, I just sat there watching it all happen, you know. It was, so that's something about, for me, about that being about being open to what the moment asks for. That was something that was totally out of my imagination, totally out of how I thought things should be. And that's been such a lesson for me now, because, you know, I don't like being at the front, not because it makes me embarrassed, it just feels that it should be that I'm doing something that I'm not doing. It really is. We're sitting on the riverbank looking out together. It's an exploration. We're all in this together. And the more I think of it in that way, the easier, the more open I am to that, what the moment asks for.
Do I want tea? Oh, with time, sorry. Yeah. So thank you. Lots of fun. Thank you.
Bless you.